is going on, cyberspace land? Welcome to the HyperPixel Podcast. I am Michael K. And once again on this day, I am joined across cyberspace by that man over there. His name is Zorain. What is going on, brother?
Not a whole lot, dude. Just living life, doing my thing, being
Excellent.
Me.
I love that.
You know, for better or worse.
Right.
How about you? How's it going with you, man?
It's going well. It's going well. Trying to stay warm. I have a space heater behind me here, just like literally like a foot behind me. Trying to exist in the winter times. 2 weeks ago it was 70 degrees here, and this past week it was like, it was in the 20s. And now it's just kind of weird. It's like 30, 50, 30, 50.
Oh man,
it's great.
Whipsaw.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
We got a real heater out there today at 16.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's hot.
It really is, because we've been going down into like single digit negatives pretty routinely the past several days.
Absolutely not.
Right.
No, thank you.
That's about as cold as like I can even bear. Like when it gets beyond that, when it gets into double digit negatives, and the worst it ever was here. This was I think something like 3 years ago. It was like negative 50 something.
Holy crap.
Like and for anybody who's not experienced life in negative 50 something degree weather, this is, at that point it doesn't matter Fahrenheit or Celsius, but like negative 50 degrees is just like, it's so cold that you can be inside your house, space heater running, the heat running, and you still feel the chill in the air. And so like I had to get into an interior room in my house that was like no windows, like 'cause I have like a den that's like no windows. Close the door, turn the space heater on, have the heat on, have on like a thermal shirt, sweatshirt, and then like I had a robe on top of it. And then it's like, okay, at that point it's kind of bearable, it's fine, but you still have, when any exposed skin has that feel of the chill that's just extant around you, and it's like. Luckily, it was only like that for like a day, and then it like went down to like up to negative 30, and then it came back after a couple days to humanity level. But
holy crap!
Like that's like it's like literally so cold they close schools around here just because it's cold, not because of snow, not because of ice. They close school because it's too cold.
That's crazy.
Because it's dangerous to go outside. Like businesses like would not, service businesses would not do service calls because it's dangerous for their people to be out in that kind of weather.
Bro.
Yeah.
That's
literally, it's going to kill you cold.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you.
Right. And I mean, I've lived here for like, since 2010, I think. Yeah, about mid 2010 or 2110, excuse me. And that's as cold as it's ever been here. Like, it's not surprising to see like negative 15, negative 10. Sometimes it's not too wild to see negative 20.
Yeah.
That would happen every few years. But negative 50 something, it's just that's another level. That's a whole nother level. Like that's basically the difference between the lowest it's ever, almost the same difference between the lowest it's ever been, and that is the same difference between freezing and zero. It's like, whoa.
Jeez.
Whoa.
Freaking can't even.
So anyway, enough talking about the weather, but I'm feeling fine that it's 16 right now, because we were out last night and it was like 2.
Yeah, right.
And that was just oof.
Oh man.
The good thing is when you get into the heat from that kind of cold, it feels so good. It feels so good.
I can imagine. Holy crap. Zorain, can you move like 3 inches to your right?
My right.
Yeah,
this way.
There, yeah, right there.
Okay,
perfect.
I'm probably drifting out of frame. Sorry about that, cyberspace. That's
all good. So what's been going on in Sector X other than it being cold? Have you been doing anything cool?
Yeah. So I've been I've been working on. I say this every time, but like video editing and trying to constantly expand my skills around that. And I think that I'm trying to find like inspiration that's not just like oh, here's something that everybody does, and let me figure out how to do that. It's more of a, what are people doing creatively with editing now, right? And it's like, if people following, the Michael K channel, like there's several things. Well, one thing recently, when we're going to be, I think, releasing this more regularly, we did a vlog with you kind of talking about some of the stuff that you were posting on like Instagram and Twitter and all that. And, I edited that, and I did a lot of the basic things that you hear everybody talking about with like J cuts, L cuts, punch ins, all that kind of stuff. And, obviously the regular editing stuff for continuity and for taking out dead space and all of that to the best degree that you can. But I'm really trying to figure out what is that next level, right? Because at some point that was a next level because like vlogs originally were just like sit and look at a camera, and it wasn't a phone at that time, right? It was literally sit and look at a camera and no editing. And then it was like everything was jump cuts. I don't know. You probably remember that. And some people are probably old enough to remember that, where vlogs really started being editing and like everything was jump cuts. Yeah. And then it got like insane with the jump cuts, where it was like 2 words jump, 1 word jump, 3 words jump. And it's like, you just can't, it becomes unwatchable at some point. And then, people really started realizing that, you could mess with perspective, and stuff with like using multiple cameras, doing stuff with like the punch ins, where it's like, it feels like you're getting closer to the person, but you're not actually, but that emphasizes the point, especially if you cut the audio in a certain way. And then the whole thing with like J cuts, where it almost looks like it's a sloppy cut, but it's not, because it keeps the pacing going with the audio. So the audio is just always hitting you. Yeah. And then your eyes, it makes this weird not weird, but interesting kind of effect with your perception visually of what's going on, when that kind of gets slightly disconnected with the audio. So your brain has to focus more. And that's the trick I think I figured out, is that your brain has to focus more on what you're watching to keep that continuity. So it pulls you into the content more. That's cool. Very interesting. But yeah, I'm trying to understand what's the next phase of that. And I need to find some like cutting edge. I don't know. That's not a good word, but avant-garde's maybe a better word. Vlog channels, and see what they're doing. Cause I'm curious. I'm trying to learn in this space, and this space is very different from where I come from. Cause my professional background is in a very technical thing. And while there are technical aspects to this, I think this is the creative aspect that I'm trying to understand, is what are people doing creatively? I think that's an interesting observation, because editing, the more I've been thinking about it over the past couple of years, the more you kind of see, like, similar to like, a music artist, when they write a bunch of stuff, you can kind of gauge, like, they have just their spice, like their touch that they put on everything. And like, I think editing is the exact same way. Like, a lot of times, if you know that one person is editing these several different things, like, you can kind of see their signature on, like, you just like, you feel that, oh, this looks like something that they did, but that's the key, as long as they're putting some of themselves into it. And that's what I'm trying to figure out for me, is that what it's like voice, right? Like, what's my voice in editing? And that's definitely a process, and it just takes lots of videos to get through. And only now are we starting to do editing with the Michael K channel, or doing content that gives opportunity for that kind of that's not technically true, but that kind of creative editing when it comes to just like monologue, speaking to the camera, like the vlog aspect. Yeah. That to me, I think, is a different mindset and approach to editing than editing like a music video, or like, like we do with the vocal covers. Definitely. There's certainly room for creativity in that. And I think that, that's something that we want to continue to explore as well. It's just the focus of the hour is this vlog stuff. Yep. So there's that. I still am playing too much Call of Duty, and I'm not going to talk about it, but
this is not a Call of Duty podcast. We've been over this.
I know. But yeah, I'm trying to, I'm getting sucked into the quote unquote routine of, messing around with all the new weapons. And that's my problem. It's like, oh, that's cool. And it's like, there's a burst weapon now that like I don't know that anybody's really using in a meta sense, but like every time I pick it up when I play like off the floor loot, it's like this thing like abolishes people,
rip and tear.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like from a long distance, and it's only got like and it's only got a reflex sight on it, no scope or anything. Anyway, not Call of Duty. So anyway, that's what's going on. Yeah, I need to go to rehab for Call of Duty at this point. Yeah, I mean that's really it, and we've got some ideas that we're throwing back and forth on some of the upcoming videos that we're doing. We're doing some new stuff, and I'm not sure when we want to announce some of the things that we're doing, or if we just want to drop it. But I mean, we could talk about some of that too if you want to. It's really up to you, I guess.
Yeah,
I would leave it up to you.
I don't know when is this episode going to come out. Maybe the new stuff will already be out by the time. No, it will not.
No, this is going to come out.
I forgot we're behind right now.
We're behind. So today is January 11th, and this is going to come out January 13th.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe let's talk about it on the next one. I think that would be
okay. Yeah,
that would be good.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
sure. So teasers, you have to watch the next one, or listen to the next one if you're on auditory platforms. Thank you if you are. Appreciate that.
Yes. For me, so I just beat my first game of 2022 this past weekend. So it's a game called Infliction. It is basically a game that was inspired by PT. One of those kind of games. It was
like that.
How long was it? It was probably like 3.5, 4 hours long. But I think it did a pretty good job of kind of expanding on the idea of, just like, one hallway, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
kind of turning it into a much longer experience. It's like a whole house that whole looping thing kind of happens in. I think, and I think it did a lot of things really well. It just kind of started to drag on a little bit towards the end. But the thing that I think it did nail, and this is like totally make or break for me, a lot of those things that I've seen, like I've watched playthroughs of those little PT-like games, and whatever the ghost or the monster or whatever the enemy is in the thing that's like out to get you, like if it doesn't look, if it just looks like fake or something, or it doesn't have like a lot of detail to it, if it doesn't look spooky when you see it up close, it just kind of loses it for me. It's just kind of like, okay, hello.
Well, part of the deal with PT and Lisa is you couldn't really see her very well, even when you did get close to her.
Yeah.
But the parts that you did see were just like really like grotesque.
Yeah. And I think this kind of, I don't think it does it as well as PT did it from that aspect, but I think it's one of the better ones that I've played. And there are definitely some moments where I screamed, even though I shouldn't be screaming right now. I could not help myself. So that was pretty cool to play through something like that got the heart racing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As far as like those indie horror games, our friend Fluff, he does a lot of the real ultra indie stuff, the stuff from like itch.io and all that. And even some of those are surprisingly good, even if they're very short. And him and then some other streamers that I've seen, play like just like random horror games. And it's clearly just like one kid, in his parents' house. Like, I mean, he's like 14 and he put it together, and it's like, kudos to that dude for doing it, taking the time, focusing on it, trying to make something interesting. Man, I really appreciate that there's people like that out in the world. 14, definitely. 40, it doesn't matter, But it's like, and many of them have like jump scares, and it's just the same thing. You're exploring some place, and then it's like if you do something wrong or you take too long, whatever it is, you get a jump scare. And it's like, it'll be a game where like the graphics, okay, yeah, they're pretty basic. Okay, these are just assets they pulled from somewhere, put them together. But frame rate's good. The feeling of movement's good. It's smooth. It feels even maybe sometimes somewhat realistic. And then the jump scare scene happens, and it's either like pre-rendered or it's like the animation is just just unrealistic. It's either like very stilted or it's like hyper smooth to the point where it's like how am I even moving here? What's even happening? I don't understand. And then it's like, to your point, the model of whatever the antagonist is like, if it's just like 2 polygons, it's like, well, that's not scary.
Right. Yeah.
And that's often the case when it is.
I've seen some, they just look like freaking like clay figures or something. It's like, okay,
exactly.
I'm not scared of this anymore.
Or it's something where it's like, for the perspective, it looks like you're moving at a different frame rate than they are. And it's just like, it's just poorly put together. And it's clear these people spend so much time and effort on making everything else
exactly I think that's what sucks me out of the whole thing, is when like the whole thing just like feels so seamless, like, oh, this is really spooky, I'm really scared. Ooh, oh, there's a clay figure boogeyman. Okay.
Right.
It's a video game, guys.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I mean, play with lighting, you know, like play with perspective from like what you can see, what you like. I don't want to see everything, you know. It's the mark of someone who has not studied horror much in any sort of way, when like you can see a lot of what the antagonist is. Because the whole point of horror is that you're supposed to project your fears onto whatever that is. And the less that you can understand about that, the more vivid the projection can be from you. Thus, it can be more personal in horror. This is why I think in the early days of film, like, you know, the lack of effects was such a blessing, because they had to be very creative with the ways that they presented, you know, antagonists. And that's why, you know, some of the ones that are a little too on the nose, you go back and watch it and it's like, it doesn't hold up. But some of them, one is very creative and very well thought out. It's like, even to this day, you can watch some horror movie from like the 50s, even, let's say, and it's like, whoa, you know,
right.
And especially when it gets ultra creative and it's like, you know, almost, well, not almost, but is things like societal commentary. You go think about like the original Night of the Living Dead, where it's like, the enemy there is humanity. It's not the zombies. And it's like, a lot of people watch Night of the Living Dead and find it boring because they're like, there's not enough zombies in the movie.
Right.
That's not the point of the movie. The zombies are literally a background. And it's like, but once you can understand these movies as that, then they become much richer. But, you know, even like the just like monster movies, there's a lot of like creativity with like not showing everything, only showing like the feet or whatever, or like, you know, just like have an out of focus shot so you don't really see it. Stuff like that is just that's the kind of, if you're going to make a horror. So I'm talking to all you aspiring indie horror developers, and you know, God bless and Godspeed and good luck with the process. And I mean that as wholeheartedly and sincerely as possible, because I hope you make something great. And if you do, let me know, want to play it. Even if it's not great, if you gave it your all and you're like, wow, I want somebody to play this, let me know. I'll play it. You can just
we're in
Zerain at Zerain.net or x@Zerain.net. Either of those will be an email you can talk to me with.
Nice. I did not know that. I'll keep that in mind.
Anyway, if you're just starting out designing this game and it's going to be like a jump scare sort of thing, that's what you're planning, spend half of your time, maybe not half, a third of your time on refining the jump scare moment. If that sucks, your game sucks, because that's the point of your game. So just understand that, take that away. And this is not from a game designer. This is just from a game enthusiast and a horror enthusiast. If that doesn't work, your game doesn't work, period. So take that and put that in your cap and do what you will with it.
Totally agree.
That's cool though. So you say that's called Infliction?
It's called Infliction. Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
It's pretty dark, honestly. it's a pretty mature game, but
that's right up my alley though.
Pretty kind of similar to like some of the stuff that happened in PT, but it kind of goes a little further, I think, honestly.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if you just want a quick 3 to 4 hour experience, it's pretty cool. It kind of started to me, it kind of started to drag on a little bit, like the last hour or so, but you know.
I feel it.
It does do that. The thing that always gets me, like in every kind of game like this, is when stuff like just randomly gets glitchy or whatever. I don't know why that just wrecks me, but I'm just like, holy crap. Like, I don't even know why. It's like not even really that scary of a thing, but it's just something about that, like, oh, things are getting glitchy. Spooky things are happening now. Let's be scared.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the thing where a lot of our lack of fear in life is based on predictability of our environment. Mm-hmm. That's why one of the reasons we live in houses, right? It's like, well, we don't get scared of rain when we're under a roof, mm-hmm. That sort of thing. And especially when it's like, it's one thing when something misbehaves in an understood way, right? Mm-hmm. Like a tornado. Like, I think about the first person to ever see a tornado. Like, I mean,
right. Yeah.
Of course you're terrified for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. If you're the first person to ever see a tornado.
Right.
But we know what a tornado is now. And if we see one, I mean, we know to be respectful of it and keep a distance.
Right.
Well, some of us know that, some of us maybe not. But so we know that, but when you don't know that, like imagine some new kind of like natural disaster happened that you like never even heard of before. Like, I don't know, like imagine like asteroids just like suddenly started teleporting into mid sky and just started falling down. Mm-hmm. Like they just appear and fall down. Like what we would be scared the rest of our lives because it's like, what the heck?
Yep.
Now imagine how much so if you're in your home or a place that you really feel safe and are accustomed to, and then like freaking like somebody shows up, appears in the corner and just starts looking. And they don't do anything, they just start looking at you. Absolutely and then you turn around, they disappear. No. And then 5 minutes later, they're there.
I'm gone.
It's like, it's potentially innocuous, right? It's just, okay, it's something that's there. But like, you're freaking out because you can't control it. It's outside of your experience. What's going on?
Yes.
That's my favorite kind of horror.
Zorain, you need to design a horror game. When is this going to happen?
Yeah. But the design part is the easy part, if you ask me. Everything else is the hard part.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm man, lazy's maybe the word, but certainly don't have the time is the unfortunate aspect.
I know that
other part.
Yeah. So, Zorain, are you ready to discuss our topic of the day?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
So I don't know where exactly we're going to go with this, but CyberSpace, we're talking about game collecting today. So we're going to kind of talk about, I guess, like what we collect and how we got there and, what it looks like now, and maybe talk about some grails that we have, different collecting experiences, different things like that. So,
did you say game collecting?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't say video game collecting.
Oh yeah, video game collecting. Excuse me.
No! You're pinning me in a hole now.
No. But you know what? Forget it. Yes, game collecting.
I was going to subvert some of your expectations there.
Because honestly, like I've gotten really collecting for me has changed a lot over the past decade. Like I collect a lot of different things that aren't necessarily video games, such as this strange Funcoland cartridge holder collection that I have with all the different colors, like there are little sleeves that they put the cartridges in, and they sold them in there. I guess
video game adjacent.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or freak, these Ninja Turtle figures that NECA releases are just absolutely gorgeous.
Have they been doing some more? I haven't paid attention.
They've been doing more like Turtles in Time, like Turtles arcade figures.
Oh yeah.
They've been doing.
I know you had that one set that was super sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what kind of started the whole thing. Was I thought that was awesome, and I got that for my birthday one year. My wife got this signed by Kevin Eastman, by the way, which is one of the creators of the freaking Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, amazing.
I don't know how she worked that situation out, but yeah, that happened. So, got that and some other. So NECA. Their figures aren't expensive unless they're, to set like what like Beanie Babies would get retired,
Yeah.
Like once they stop making the figure, then sometimes they do get expensive. But out the gate, I mean, they're like $25. It's not that bad. So they're not like on the higher end of collectible figures, but they're like, for what they are, for the price, they're like pretty insanely detailed. So not that this is Ninja Turtle collecting the podcast or anything like that, but yeah, so they've been visiting lots of like the Turtles, the live action movies, lots of cartoon like different villains and stuff from the cartoons. And
I want to get like a movie, like original movie Casey Jones. Do they have that?
Oh, I don't know if that seems so familiar. I can't remember if it's the movie one or if it might be just the cartoon one. I think I'm thinking of the cartoon one.
Cartoon one's cool, but like the movie one would be super sweet.
Yeah, they did make like I think they're about a foot tall of each of the turtles.
Oh,
man,
and
they're like insanely detailed.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I got to go back and watch that first movie.
Dude,
like,
same.
I've watched the second movie like a billion times.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched the third a few times. I've watched the first one more than the third, but it's just been so long. It's been 15 years probably.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. The last time I watched it, I was living in my apartment and I got it on DVD. I got 1 and 2 on DVD.
Yeah.
So this was, I don't know, probably about 10 years ago. Kind of around the time that I started collecting video games. So
what do you know?
So yeah. So what do you collect, Zareen? What do you like? What gets you going?
Well, it's funny we were talking about horror.
Yeah, right.
So, and I don't know why this is where I've gotten. Maybe I could take a stab at trying to figure out why here live ish. So as far as video games go, most of what I collect is related to survival horror in one way or another. And it's mainly I collect Resident Evil games, Silent Hill games, and other similar things. Although I haven't really, my collection beyond Resident Evil and Silent Hill is not very vast. And beyond that, if we're going outside of horror, things that I either do or intend to collect are, usually original releases of games that are important to me one way or another.
Yeah.
For example, one of the things that I was actually looking at just yesterday, because I was really afraid that it had gotten expensive, and it's not, and I need to buy it now before it does, is Black Label Metal Gear Solid on PS1.
Yeah, nice.
Because mine's greatest hits, and I really need to get Black Label. Because like I was at so on the previous podcast, I talked about a store called Pre-Played that's at a regular vacation spot of me and my wife. And the last time I was there, they had a Black Label MGS that was, I think, $25. And I was like, I need to buy this now. Yeah. That's what I told myself. Yeah. And now, sure enough, it's like $38-$40 now, which is still not bad. And I totally would buy it at that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just haven't yet. And I don't know why I haven't yet. I just need to.
Yeah. But PS1 games have been slowly increasing in value over the past couple of years. Not as much as some other systems, but they've been climbing.
And for me, I don't. So I'm definitely not a kind of person that buys things to hold for their increased value and then sell.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't flip stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I right now I don't. That doesn't mean that I won't start doing something like that in the future, but I have no plans or intentions to, because for me, it's just a matter of holding on to a piece of my own history. Generally, and this is why the survival horror, because I've played so much survival horror throughout the day, and the things that I want in my collection that I've not played, I want them so that I can play them.
Yeah, right.
Of course, there's ROMs and there's other ways to play certain games, but just as well as anybody, it's different when you have the original game, you put it into the original system, and you play it with the original controller, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, the big thing for me for Resident Evil, I'll try to go series by series. Before that, even like I said, MGS, I have a Black Label MGS 2. I don't really care about anything beyond 2, so I just really want MGS 1 Black Label, and I think that would probably complete my Metal Gear Solid collection.
There's something so satisfying to me about the way that it's just like such a clean looking game. You know, there's just not a lot going on, but it's just so satisfying to me to see a game like that.
Well, and I think that especially if you talk about like the cover where there's like literally nothing on it but the title of the game, the thing for me that is really cool about is that it doesn't try to put any expectations in your mind about what the game is. Yeah, okay, the back cover talks about it and shows you screenshots and stuff, but it's like until you really play that game, you don't understand that this is a different kind of game than you've played before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you've played some of the older Metal Gear games, but even then, this feels so much more like that kind of sneaking around game that you would expect those others have wanted to feel like, but didn't quite, just because of the limitations of the technology at the time.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the game where the series really comes into its stride in a way that changed it as a game series for certainly for better, but it's like it also allowed Kojima to do some wild things, both cool from experience perspective, but from story perspective, you know, there's questionable decisions from my perspective, but anyway, we can talk about that in another podcast. And then, also Parasite Eve, I mentioned on a previous podcast that I was able to acquire Black Label Parasite Eve and Parasite Eve 2, and I own a Third Birthday. Like I said, I don't think I have a case for Third Birthday though, so I need to find one of those. And I probably could find a complete Third Birthday. It's probably not that expensive now yet. I don't know how PSP games are going, but
kind of all over the place, honestly.
Yeah, it just depends.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
I actually saw somebody. So I've talked about this before. I'm on this freaking auction site called Whatnot, where people do like live streams, but they're like, you know, rapid selling things basically. And you can very easily spend a lot of money on this.
Yeah.
On this.
So it's like Antique Roadshow, but you're actually buying the thing you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly. And they recently updated so you can actually finally freaking use the website instead of they just had like a phone app for it. So now you can actually use the website.
Now I might actually use it.
Yeah. So use my referral code and you'll get $10, and I'll also get $10 for free. Anyway,
we can talk about that for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so it is what you would expect it to be. Somebody just has a game and, you know, they're kind of talking about it and showing you what it is. And then you can hit the bid button and then it'll bid up, you know, $1 or whatever. And so
that's cool.
It's one of those things where you can get a good deal on something, and you can also get wrecked. So you definitely need to know like what the thing is worth.
Yeah.
Otherwise people get in these bidding wars, and the same thing happens on eBay where somebody bids on something and they automatically think this belongs to me. And then they just keep bidding it, you know, into oblivion. But yeah, you can get good deals and you can get totally wrecked. You just gotta be aware and keep yourself in check.
Definitely can see how the video aspect or the stream aspect of it would further emotionalize the purchase.
Yeah, and I mean it's cool because you're like, you know, there's a chat, so you're sitting in there and you're like talking to people about, you know, collecting whatever the thing is that you're looking at or whatever. So
yeah.
So there's kind of that community aspect like you would find like, you know, on a live stream like on Twitch or something. But anyway, somebody sold a Shattered Memories for PSP.
Oh man!
And I looked it up to see how much they went for, and it's selling for about $100 now.
Dang.
And
the Grail in that series is the PS2 version. That's like the last time I looked, it was well over $100. Like I saw like a disc for like $100, I think at one point.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Maybe it's gone back down. If so, fingers crossed. Because
right,
100 for the PSP though.
Yeah, he bought it. I think a person got it for like 78 or 79, which I mean, it's still pricey, but a pretty good deal on it. But the thing that always gets me on this freaking thing is, and I don't know how they work this out, but you pay for shipping on the first item, and then everything beyond that is an extra $1, and that's it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, especially if you're buying like a console or something like that, and you previously got a game, you're paying maybe $5 shipping for a game and a system. So
that makes no sense to me.
But anyway, I had no idea that Shattered Memories was worth so much on PSP, but it's not surprising.
All of them, dude. Like, so like I said, Silent Hill is a series that I collect, and when I got my Wii version, which I don't know why it took me so long to buy it, I paid, I think, right around $100. It was a little bit less, but this is like brand new condition.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why this didn't come with shrink wrap. That it's that new. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness. That's why I paid like kind of premium at the time for it. It's all that stuff just keeps going up and up, and I really want a PS2 one. I want it because I want to play it on PS2 because I want to experience what it's like. But yeah, so speaking, I guess a little more detail about like what I have and what I want in each of those series. For Silent Hill, I've got Black Label 1, I've got Black Label 2, which is the one that I got release day. I also have the Greatest Hits. I also have the Restless Dreams one, which is the Xbox version. I also have the PC version. I do not have a box for the PC version. That's something that I would like to get, but I don't know that I ever will, because I'm extremely concerned about people just printing it and being like, "Oh, here you go." It's like, I don't want that. So, and it's not. And I think you and I've kind of talked about this before. How do you authenticate that one way or another?
I think that's something you would have to buy at like a sealed. A video game convention, or sealed. Like a video game convention from like, a trusted seller or something, not just some Joe Schmo on some auction site or whatever.
Right. And so I also have Silent Hill 3 Black Label, which is my release day copy of that as well. Mm-hmm. I don't think I have a Greatest Hits of 3, although I probably should get it. I have 4 for the Xbox, which is the original copy that I had. And then I also have 4 for PS2. I've got PS3 Homecoming. Trying to think. I've got PS3 Downpour. I've got the PSP Origins. I've got PS2 Origins, which apparently I didn't know this until somewhat recently. The PS2 Origins, like, you can't beat it. Like, you get to a certain point and then there's like a cutscene that happens and it crashes the game basically all the time.
What?
Yeah. There may be some way around it. I don't know, but I think it's a pretty known thing.
Oh man, bummer.
Yeah.
That's like Turok. What Turok Seeds of Evil, I think, on the N64. There's actually 2 versions of it. There's a gray one and a black one. Mm-hmm. I think the black one is the first release of it that has like a glitch like that in it towards the end, and they re-released it. And then there's a gray variant that is the re-release that's the pricey one. So sometimes you can see that one like in a video game store, and somebody, catch them slipping, and pick up a game that is, the cheaper one's like $15 or whatever, and then the other one's like $150, $200. So,
oh, good grief, man, that's a big spread,
right?
Shattered Memories, got that for the Wii. I'm trying to think what else as far as the US stuff. I also have Silent Hill 2, 3, and 4 Japanese releases. Not I forget what they call the Greatest Hits over there, but not that. It's like the original releases. What else do I have? I feel like I'm forgetting something, Michael. That's probably pretty much it. The things missing from that collection is I definitely want a Silent Hill 1 Japanese version. I'm trying to think. Oh, the obviously the PS2 Shattered Memories. I would like to get a PSP Shattered Memories. I want the whole set of US releases at least. but I'm not sure if I'm willing to pay like $200 for PS2. I'm pretty sure I'm not willing.
Yeah. Out of my money, no. That's one of those things where I would want to like maybe get some more valuable games and like, flip them or whatever, and then like just funnel that money into the fund for Shattered Memories or whatever, something like that. But I don't know. Once it hits $100, I have a really hard time, unless, and I can kind of get into this a little bit with some of my stuff, but unless there's like some like experience associated with the thing or something like that, then I guess it's a little bit different. But like if I'm just hopping on, on eBay and I just clicking buy it now on a thing, it's just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Right. No. Yeah. Well, that's you're right. Like if I went to a store and they had like PS2 Shattered Memories and it was like $215, I would be in that store for an hour sweating. Like it would be like the what is it? What's the comedian? I can't think of his name. The guy where he's just like looking like the GIF where he's like sweat just pouring down his face. It's like it's Jordan Peele. Yeah. It's like that would be me for like the whole hour. Be like just staring at it. I don't know. Oh man. If I went to a store that was 150 at this point, I would just get it because it'd be like it just randomly was in this store. That's Providence.
Yes. Man, yeah.
But there's no way it would be 150 in a store. Like just stores know too well now what they got for the most part. So that's Silent Hill. Resident Evil, my collection is a little more extensive. Well, there's definitely more Resident Evil games. I have a Black Label Resident Evil 1, as I mentioned recently, courtesy of you. Thank you very much for that. I have Black Label Resident Evil 2 original release, which is my original copy, and then that's the non-DualShock version. And I also have the Resident Evil 2 Black Label DualShock version, and I have Resident Evil Greatest Hits, Resident Evil 2 Greatest Hits. So those are 3 releases of PS1 Resident Evil 2. I have Resident Evil 3 Black Label. I have 4 on the Wii. I don't have a GameCube copy. I would like to get a GameCube copy, though I don't think that it's a real Resident Evil game. It's a really important game to me personally because I like the game. I wish it weren't called Resident Evil. It's just
one of the first memories that I have of going over to your first apartment is I don't know if it was you or if it was your brother playing Resident Evil 4.
It had to have been me because I don't think my brother has ever.
I just remember it was on the TV. It was just like paused or something.
Yeah. Because it was honestly, I'll probably tell you exactly where I was because I almost remember that moment because I think I was fighting.
It was like a desert looking area, I think.
So that's not where I was thinking it was. So if that's the case, then that's interesting because that would have been like later in the game.
Unless I'm confusing it with some other memory or something, but
maybe. Either way, I do recall in that apartment playing through Resident Evil 4, and I didn't actually beat it at that point. I didn't beat it till later when I got it on the Wii, and because that was actually a GameCube copy at that point that I did have, and I got rid of it like the dummy that I am. Anyway, I got rid of my GameCube as well, like the dummy that I am.
I know that feeling, man.
So, but yeah, I have Resident Evil 5 and I have 6 on PC. I don't really, 6 is the worst numbered game by far. Things beyond the numbered series, I don't really care about. I don't, and then like now, like 7, 8, the collecting aspect of it is just like weird to me because like to me now Resident Evil is a PC game. It's not like a PlayStation game because I prefer to play it on PC, especially the way that those games are. So, but I do have a Biohazard 2 RE copy. So I have a physical Resident Evil 2 remake for PS4, and I have Biohazard 2 RE, the Resident Evil 2 remake Japanese for PS4 that I imported from Japan. And it is different. Like the the art and everything is the same, which is sad. I hate that now. Like that's one of the things that I love about the old ones is the art's different. But the game itself is different. I think I may have spoken to you about this before, but like some of the cutscenes are definitely censored, and they're not censored as in they're like fuzzed out, but they're different.
Yeah.
Like the part where like the dude gets, well, spoilers if you haven't played Resident Evil 2 remake, but at the beginning of the game where a dude gets ripped in half, you don't see the ripping in half aspect. You just see him dying. And so there's several subtle things like that are different, but for the most part, the game's the same. It's just like cutscenes are different.
Yeah.
I had to get that because Resident Evil 2 is like my favorite game in that series. And I love, as I spoke about in the last podcast, I love that game for lots of different reasons. But yeah, and as I spoke before, I have a full set of PS1 biohazard releases, which is Resident Evil in Japan. So I'll go through it one more time just because it's ridiculous how many there actually are. There's the original Biohazard, there's Biohazard Director's Cut, and then there's Biohazard DualShock, and then there's Biohazard DualShock Director's Cut, which is, or maybe it's Director's Cut first. Either way, there's 3 Biohazard releases. Then there's Biohazard 2, Biohazard 2 DualShock, Biohazard 3, and then Biohazard Gun Survivor, which is the Resident Evil Survivor game. In that series, things that I almost forgot with Resident Evil 2. I Dreamcast Resident Evil 2, courtesy of Mr. Michael K. Also, Game.com Resident Evil 2, courtesy of Mr. Michael K. You have.
I like feeding your addictions. Greatly. It's cool.
Yeah, clearly, and it works apparently. Things that I am missing are. Wait a second. I feel like you got me another one too that I'm not even thinking about.
Did you say the Saturn one?
I didn't say this. That's it. That's the one that always slips out of my mind because like I don't. Okay. Yes. There's a Saturn Resident Evil game. Oh my goodness. Geez, how did I forget about that? It's because like I had a Saturn for all of like a month once before I sold it because it had the battery issue and I'm like, I'm not dealing with this. Anyway, that was dumb too. What are you gonna do? I was much dumber in my younger years. I'm still dumb, don't get me wrong, but I was much dumber then.
Yeah, I've sold some stuff that I'm not pleased about.
Yeah,
as well.
But things that I don't have. So it was Biohazard Saturn that you got me, right? Yes. So, because I was just that's why I was thinking like what. That's why it slipped out of my mind because I still want the US one because that's like the long box one, I think, right?
Yeah.
I don't have that. That would be like I'm pretty sure if I get that, then the only thing that I'm missing on original Resident Evil Biohazard is the US PS1 long box, which it's so hard to find a good condition one. Those things are all beat up.
Yeah. I saw one not too long ago and it just looked like trash.
Dude, like torn apart, literally physically torn apart. Sort of.
It's like the zombies were trying to jump out of it or something. I don't know.
I mean, there's some cool realism in that, I guess.
Right.
So that Resident Evil 2, like I'm much closer to, I think, a complete collection on that because I think the only thing that I'm missing is the GameCube Resident Evil 2, which I told the story that I almost had it. I had it in my hand, but it turns out it wasn't actually an original box. So I was big sad on that.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a mega bummer.
Man.
Oh, yeah. I've never actually bought one in that kind of state before, but there have definitely been some that I saw and I was like, oh, it's just like a, black and white printed cover art, kind of situation. Yeah. It's like, ugh.
So yeah, the other things I want the whole GameCube series. So I don't have like a remake. I don't have 2. Obviously, 3 came out on GameCube as well. 4, like I had mentioned before. So yes, in case you didn't know, Resident Evil 1 through 4 are all on GameCube. Some people don't know that.
I did not know the 3rd one came out on GameCube.
It is really rare. I think it's the rarest one. I'm pretty sure.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Because I've never seen it outside. So when it first came out, I saw it at Best Buy, and that's why it stuck in my mind One of my favorite game series. Like, what? This game's old. At this time, this game is very old when 2 and 3 come out on GameCube. But it makes sense that they do because, they were going to do 4 as an original game, and then they decided to do 0 as the original game. What's like you got 4 and 0? What? I don't know how to. If I'm a Nintendo person, I can't play all of these ones in between it anyway because it's all PlayStation. And so they released the remake, and then they. Well, I think what it was is the 0 was going to come out before 4. I don't know. Don't get me wrong, slipping and lying because I will lie to you because I don't know for sure timeline. But anyway, they brought all those out on GameCube, so I definitely want that. I've got Resident Evil 4 on Wii, like I said. And what else am I missing? I don't care about 5 and beyond, really. I think that's about it. So it's like if I wanted to drop like $1,000, I could get everything that I'm missing. But it would probably be pretty close to $1,000, and I'm just like not there yet.
Yeah, no. Yeah, for me again, it's more about finding it like in the wild, and I know that people have different interpretations of like what the wild means, like if that means just like at a flea market or a thrift store or something like that, or if finding it at a video game store counts as in the wild, which to me it does. Basically anything that's not me just going and clicking a buy it now button on eBay is like in the wild pretty much. So
I agree with that assessment. For me, it's like I'm very particular about things. And so it is a challenge to find things in the wild. It is an extreme challenge to find really rare things in the wild. And it is almost impossible challenge to find really rare things in the wild that are in very, very good condition.
Yes,
and
definitely.
If I'm spending that level of money, I want something that's in very, very good condition. And so that's why usually I stray toward the side of just, let me click the buy it now button.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm with you, like the emotional aspect of in the moment, like in a game store. If you and I were in a game store and there was like a Resident Evil 3 GameCube that like had like some little scratch on it, I would buy it.
Yeah. Because
I'm not going to play it on GameCube. If I were, I'd play it on Dolphin with a ROM anyway. Very likely, because if I'm playing it, then I'm probably I'm not. I was about to say if I'm playing it, I'm probably playing it to speedrun. But I sure as crap am not speedrunning Resident Evil 3. There's that in and of itself. Speedrunning Resident Evil series generally is a podcast, but even Resident Evil 3 speedrunning, that's a whole podcast. Like that's evil. That's like get away from me. Because like literally the run's based on RNG, and we've talked. I think you and I have talked about this a little bit before. But I think that's an upcoming podcast at some point is speedrunning. If not, it should be.
Definitely. That'd be awesome.
So I keep rambling here, but I'm trying to think about in my collection beyond. I've spoken about most of the things that are near and dear to me in my collection. I would. Well, we're not talking about grails yet, so you go ahead and talk about what you're collecting.
Yeah,
because I just realized what one of my grails was. I hadn't really thought about it a whole lot.
Oh yeah, we can circle back. We can circle.
Yeah,
back.
Definitely.
So for me, I think collecting in general has kind of become this thing where I want to collect games that I don't really want a complete set of anything. I mean, more power to you if you want to get a complete, N64 US release set or whatever.
Oh, like a console set.
Yeah. A complete set for a console. But I don't really want to do that. I want to collect for games that I like actually want to play or something like that. So might be a game that somebody recommended that would definitely like it, maybe I saw like kind of a review of it or something like that. That would be something on the list. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff that I collect isn't necessarily like on a list. It's stuff that I see it and it just like all the nostalgia fireworks just start shooting off of my mind. I have some like, buried memory of this game or this thing or whatever, from my childhood. So games that maybe like, they just have like some memory associated with them, like a game that I used to play with like a childhood friend or something like that, or a game that maybe and this is kind of my story with like PS1 collecting. I didn't have any PS1 games until about 2002. I think it was like 2001, 2002. So, and even then it was just like very minimal. So a lot of the PS1 games that I saw like in magazines and different ads and commercials and, all over the place, I never played. I never had. I always remember being a kid and being like, oh, I want to play that, but I hate PlayStation, Sega, Nintendo forever, fam. So yeah, if I could go back in time and tell my childhood self, little boy, when you're about, 33 years old or so, you're going to start collecting PS1 like crazy. I would just do backflips into oblivion. I don't even know what the heck I would do. But anyway, so all that being said, kind of the thing that got me into collecting, in general, and side note, I've always kind of been somebody who's played like older games, and I've always, like, even when, I was playing my Saturn and N64, like I still had my Genesis and Super Nintendo and NES hooked up. Like I was still playing all these older games, even though they weren't cool anymore. Yeah. I've always just appreciated older games for, what they are. And so, I've always held on to all these older games for, except for some certain situations that I'll get into in a little bit, but, I've held on to most of them, and I kind of always played all these older games. Like I get a new system, and it's just another one, and amidst all the older ones. And so it was like 2011, I think, 2011, and a friend of mine went to this local store, and that store had a complete in-box Power Glove.
Oh man,
complete. Like it even had like the little,
it's so bad.
You're right. It even had like the little Velcro things that you put on the sensor to put it on the TV, like that, like the warranty card, all that stuff. Wow. And so she asked, she knew that, I liked older games and stuff like that. So she asked if I wanted her to pick it up for me. And I was like, yes, I think I do want you to pick that up for me. And so the Power Glove was something that as a kid I never had. I saw it in a movie, and it wasn't The Wizard. I saw it in this movie Beethoven, which was, it doesn't matter. It's this movie about the Saint Bernard and these kids, this family, typical 90s, family movie. So it was just like this scene for like 5 seconds where this kid was playing with the Power Glove, and I saw it and I was like, holy H, I need that. I don't know what the heck that is, but that looks cool. He has like a controller on his arm there. And it's like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So it was something that I kind of I looked for in stores. Every time I was in a store, I was like, do they have that glove thing? And sure enough, they didn't. Cause this was probably like 93 or 94 at this point. Mm-hmm. Like I remember going to Toys R Us and specifically looking for this thing, and they had NES top loaders at this point.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So this was far beyond the life and the death of the Power Glove.
You picked one of those up for me back then.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, I had always kind of had this deep, childhood want for this Power Glove. Yeah. And, I finally got this thing. And then I realized as an adult with adult money that I can totally spend that adult money on things from my childhood that I wanted that I could never get. And that's kind of how I started to get into collecting. I started watching, people like AVGN on YouTube that, he has a video game collection, like Pat the NES Punk, started getting into more of the collecting YouTube stuff, like the Game Chaser.
He's got a complete NES set, right?
He does, including
World Championships,
both of them.
Oh man!
Both the gray cart, which was used in the competition, the NES World Championship, and the gold one, which, man, now I'm blanking on how you got the gold one. I forgot if it was, I think you had to send it to Nintendo Power. No, I can't remember how you got the gold one. It's more rare than the gray one. It was either given out to winners of the competition or it was like a Nintendo Power thing. But apparently like the label on the gold one is just like, it's cheapo. Like it's just like a printed thing. Like that somebody printed on a printer and just plopped on there. But regardless, it's,
it's the thing
worth $1 bazillion. But
right.
But yeah, so I started getting into all that kind of stuff and just kind of like learning about like, wow, all these games are like worth like, $100, like $200. That's insane. I can't imagine paying that much money for a video game. And, like,
fast forward.
Right. Looking back on it, like at the time, like I remember looking at Little Samson on eBay and seeing one for about a little over $100 and be like, no, bro, I'm not paying that much money for.
You should have bought 10 for at that price.
Yes. So yeah. And nowadays in 2022, that game's worth like $3,500, which is insane. It's a great game. I think it's one of the few NES games that's worth a whole lot of money. That's actually a really good game, but is it worth, $3,500? I don't think it's necessarily that uncommon,
Right. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. And this reminds me actually, and I don't want to hijack the conversation, but I didn't talk about things outside of video games that I somewhat collect. And I'll let you finish before I go back to that. But I did want to make the point where you're saying, is it worth that? Obviously, most people, when they get into collecting or they think about things like that, they understand that the value of these things is extremely subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I think that a lot of people don't catch is that when things like that take off to astronomical numbers, that the reason why that is that subjectivity is becoming less subjective and is becoming more objective. And so the more people who see that there's value here and believe that there's value there, the more value there is there. Yeah. So that's why things increase in price, like, especially things that are limited, that are scarce. I mean, this is just basic economics, but that's the reality of it. And so I think that people don't understand the economic aspect of it. And the reality is these things are as scarce as they are, I should speak about the other way, are as plentiful as they're ever going to be. The only thing that can happen is a cart can get lost or destroyed, right? And ostensibly that makes every other one more valuable for every one that gets lost or destroyed. And potentially they could be found, so that makes them each other one less valuable. But the point is that, and this is what's happening. This is kind of a I should pin this thing. We should come back to it as a meta conversation around collecting, maybe more toward the end. But these markets for collecting things, and this goes way beyond just video games, have long had and are increasingly having many, many more uninterested actors. And when I say interested, I mean interested in the topic or the thing, the object of collection. Yeah. And they're more interested in the valuation of the object being collected than they are in the object being collected. And likely they have almost zero interest in the object being collected, but extreme interest in the value of that object being collected. But let's pin that and come back to it, because I want you to continue your point about the things you're collecting and all that, and your kind of journey into collecting. Yeah.
And I actually didn't mention this earlier, but so I played all these older games, but another reason for that was because my parents owned a video rental store in the 80s and early 90s. And so I inherited a bunch of games from this store when they closed the store, RIP, because Blockbuster was a giant back then in 1993. And so I had all these NES games, Genesis games, Super Nintendo games. And, I mean, when you have like literally more games than you have time to play, you can, randomly just pick one and, keep, making your way through them slowly over the years. But I used to do this thing. This is random. I used to do this thing where I would have like a Saturday or something where I would just play as many games as I could. Like I would just, I would play, I don't know, maybe for like 15 to 30 minutes on each game and just try to play as many as I could.
That's funny.
So maybe I should do that again at some point, but
that's a good idea.
Yeah. But anyway, so that whole thing, I have hauled those games along with me over the years. So, me getting the Power Glove was just kind of like the icing on top of this shelf full of games that, just caused this avalanche to occur. But yeah, so I kind of started learning about all these different games. And at first, I was just I had no idea what I was freaking doing. I was just like, if I saw a deal on a game, I was just buying a game and, buying a bunch of fluff that I don't need. And to be honest, a lot of it I still need to get rid of. And I'm going to do that at some point, but, anyway, that's a different conversation.
Time.
Yeah, time. The whole time thing. But for me, collecting, I guess as I've gotten older, it's become less of just collect whatever game and more focused collecting. So as I mentioned before, I've been kind of focusing on PS1 over the past couple of years because it was just always this system that I was so jealous of, because of the whole console wars mentality. I'm not going to play you, but I want those games. That kind of I can't have it.
A deep console warrior.
Yeah, exactly. And I've there's something I don't know how this happened, to be honest with you, but there's just something that I just love so much about the PS1 aesthetic of the games, especially the 3D games. On the Saturn, I always loved 3D, or not 3D, the 2D sprite based games. So 2D, the 32-bit sprite based games, I love the look of that. And, both the Saturn and PS1 the PS1 has many more of those than the Saturn does, but I've always loved the aesthetic of that. So, and there's something about the way that a PS1 game looks, the jewel case. I don't know. I always used to look at it with envy, and I have no idea. But I've really kind of focused on PS1 collecting games that I know are great, that I've never played, that people go when I say that I've never played that. A couple of years ago, I had never played Final Fantasy VII until then. Right.
Here's spoilers. I don't know that I've personally beaten Final Fantasy VII. I don't know. It's been so long. I don't think that I have actually. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those. It's in the zeitgeist so much that it's you see it everywhere, and anyway.
Yeah. But yeah. So that's been kind of a focus of mine to, catch up on games that I never played as a kid that I always wanted to play, whether it be from seeing it at a friend's house or playing it in a magazine, playing it at a friend's house or seeing it in a magazine ad. Learn to speak, Michael K. Geez. Something like that just, and a lot of them I just don't know. I literally do not know until I see it. And it's that's one of them. I need it.
Yeah.
One recently that I saw, and I didn't see the actual game. I saw somebody was talking about it. It's this game Blasto.
I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
The voice of Blasto was Phil Hartman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so that was the whole selling point of this game. I just remember it. They wore ads for this game out. And it was just
I don't know how I didn't see it then. That's weird.
He's just kind of a goofy looking superhero. He has a giant torso. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't even think it's that great of a game, but I've always freaking wanted to play this stupid game because I saw it every other page in EGM or whatever. So
right.
So stuff like that. Another one for me is in the great eBay boom of 2002. I sold my entire Nintendo 64 collection. I want to say it was probably a little under $200 that I sold the whole thing for. And I wound up buying I sold that and I bought a GameCube lot with that money. So I basically turned my N64 into a GameCube. I have no idea why I did this. I have no clue, Zorain, why I did this, but I did this. I did. So, and that's based on everything I just told you. That's like insanely unlike me to get rid of a bunch of games like that. But here we are. So
fiending for that GameCube, dog.
Right. I guess that's what it was. And so I've always been wanting to get the Nintendo 64 collection back to where it was. Yeah. And I'm mostly there. I'm just missing Conker's Bad Fur Day, which is a little bit of a pricier one, Majora's Mask, and the original Mario Party. And Majora's Mask and Mario Party, they're like $40 to $60 games, something like that nowadays, which isn't like too bad, but it's one of those things where I haven't found it in a good condition. They're pretty common, honestly. It's not like I never see them.
If I could find wherever my Parappa is, very likely in the same box, there is a Mario Party for N64. And you are most welcome to have it if I find it.
That would be awesome, and I would appreciate that. And that would be cool because that like actually has kind of like a story attached to it versus, again, there's Mario Party again. I don't want to buy it right now. That's like the conversation I have on repeat with myself. Conker's Bad Fur Day is a little bit of a different situation because that's like $130 game now ish. So, and I don't really ever see that anywhere. And that's a little bit more of it's a little up there in price that, makes me cringe a little bit spending that kind of money. But
the only thing in my collection that I've spent that much on is my Black Label Silent Hill. And that's only because of this. Oh man, so many bad things. I've told this story before, but I had a friend who borrowed it when we were in high school and he lost it. And he's like, "Oh, I got you. I'll get you another one." And he did. And it was a greatest hits. I did not lend him a greatest hits version.
Yes.
And then you and I saw one for like $35 once.
Yeah, this is true.
I did not buy it.
This is quite accurate.
You should have like literally slapped my face like in the store. I said, I'm not going to get it. You should have just turned and just been like, not even say anything, just slap me.
Bro.
And then I do need to buy this.
That was back when collecting was just like a different thing. Like this stuff, like it was not expensive. At that same store, I bought several Sega CD games for like $1, $2, which is just unheard of nowadays. I was random about Sega CD. So I have this game called Wild Woody that is just stupid. It's just a stupid game. I bought it because it was stupid. It has a stupid name. You play as a pencil with arms and legs, and he attacks enemies by erasing them. That is the game. It's not a great game.
With his butt, by the way.
With his butt, excuse me. Yeah, the pencil is his butt. So you just imagine what this looks like when he's erasing enemies. So I bought it for $25, back around that time because it was just hilarious. I thought it was ridiculous. Yeah. That game's worth like $200 now.
Are you serious? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's just, I can't. I just can't even.
What in the world? Back at that point, like the thing is, I think especially people that are like in their 20s now, or even late 20s for sure, I think don't have an appreciation for how quickly information moves. Because back then we were still operating in the mode that, it's $35. Talking about the Silent Hill thing. It's $35 today. It'll be $35 in 6 months, and then I can get it then.
Yeah, right.
And that's not how things work anymore, like at all. It's $35 today. It could be $300 in 6 months. You just never know because of all kinds of different conditions.
Exactly. So
anyway.
So yeah, that completing my childhood N64 collection is another kind of collecting thing of mine. But beyond that, like I don't really do much like Super Nintendo really anymore. I've always wanted Earthbound. I do not have Earthbound. That is a much pricier game. So there's that. That was another one of those that I just kind of like I watched for the longest time. It's like, this one sells for about $80. That's a little, I don't feel like spending that kind of money right now. And, you know,
So what you're saying is you didn't have any PK fire in your soul for it?
No, I did not. You were correct, Lorraine. But for me, like for Super Nintendo, a couple of years back, I got Chrono Trigger and I got Mega Man X2. And those were two mega grails for me at the time. I got them both together for $200 and I was very pleased with that deal.
That's amazing.
And they are both in very, very good condition. So that was like, okay, I'm kind of done with Super Nintendo after that. Like that's what I wanted. The only other thing I would really want would be like a box for Chrono Trigger, like to have that, to box it up and have it complete. That would be awesome. But the box costs like, you know, freaking $300 now. That game's soared in price too.
So I'm gonna use this opportunity to step in and say something that's going to be controversial. But I have considered, for decorating purposes, buying repro boxes of a lot of these games that I just love. And I understand that there's probably some heartburn if people hear me say that about it, because like there's a lot of, you know, real shady stuff that go on with repro boxes, and people make them and sell them and buy them for bad reasons, right? Trying to deceive people that this is an original box. But I still think that there's legitimate use for them, because it's like somebody like me, like Chrono Trigger, for example. That's a pretty good example. But even better, I'm trying to think of a something that would make more sense for me. One that I really, really want is Final Fantasy NES box. I don't even know how much it is. I might could get an original one for not too much, to be honest. But either way, that's something that I would want as a decoration piece in my house. You know what I mean? And Chrono Trigger box, a Star Fox box, which I may actually have a Star Fox box somewhere. I realized last night that I need a Star Fox 64, like the one that came with the Rumble pack, like that whole package. I remember camping out at KB Toys for that. I was so freaking excited about that game. But I think that that kind of stuff's really cool. And I don't know. I guess for me, repros are fine if it's not something like, if I know it, right, and I'm not trying to pawn it off as this is something other than what it is. Yeah, right. But I also understand wanting an original box, like the third birthday thing. I've got the disc. I'm pretty sure I don't have the box. I want an original third birthday box. I could get a repro box of that. No, I mean, it would look perfect, right? It wouldn't look any different, but I would know, and it's not, my collection's not complete because I don't have this thing. Right. And so I think that when people are honest about it like that, I think that's repros in general, even like carts and everything, are really cool. Because I think that, you know, that serves a market that is not being served. I think that Nintendo and some other publishers could be smart by doing things like actually doing official repros limited run. So like that's actually started happening recently. Retrobit. Really? I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Name sounds familiar at least. They actually released official Saturn, like, you know, approved, whatever, endorsed by Sega or whatever, Saturn and Genesis so Sega will do anything at this point, right, to make money. But I mean, they're using like, you know, the same model, like not the same molds, but you know, like the same design as the original controllers were. Oh wow! So they are cool. Wireless versions of them, wired and wireless versions of them. I can't imagine that it's going to. This has to happen sooner or later, right? For Nintendo. Nintendo's going to be the last holdout. But like the Mega Man Wily Wars for Genesis is one that they recently did. But there have been random NES games that they've released, like really Metal Storm. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. No, I mean I haven't. I didn't know that they were re-releasing these. So like it's actual. It's a repro. It's a repro that they made that kind of is like modeled after the original.
Maybe the cartridge is a different color or something like that.
Okay.
But it has like a manual, artwork, the whole shebang.
And is the box like same dimensions and all that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is finally happening because for a long time I was like, can you imagine? Just stop and think that Nintendo re-releases Metroid in the yellow box, all that kind of stuff, or even in the black box, like because I think there's 2 releases of that, right?
Yeah.
And or it's like they release both, and it's like 10,000 copies of one, 5,000 copies of the other.
Yeah.
Something like that. That sells out in 2 seconds. 100% sells out in 2 seconds.
I mean,
it doesn't affect the primary market.
Yeah.
Or the original market for the original, because that's a different thing. It's going to have a different valuation.
Mm-hmm.
But they can print money, make 1 million of them, make 2 million of one and 1 million of the other.
Like when they released the NES Classic, and that was just this crazy sought after thing for like a couple of years. And like even now they're releasing Bluetooth versions of Super Nintendo, NES, and 64 controllers to use to play, the virtual console, whatever games on the Switch.
Are they really?
Yeah. Those controllers are, they're official Nintendo controllers. So
there's no reason that they couldn't have a receiver that plugs into a Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can actually use those controllers with the 8-bit DOE receiver on the original.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Bro.
So you can get a brand new N64 controller. But yeah, I mean, that stuff sells out instantaneously when stock goes up. So
like right now is a problem because getting chips is hard.
Mm-hmm.
But in the next 3-4 years, that shouldn't be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nintendo does the same thing where it's like they're hyper conservative with their runs, and I don't know if it's hyper conservative from a financial perspective or just from a we're trying to juice the market perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because like they don't really benefit by juicing the market. You know what I mean? It's like I guess my point being is that the demand for Nintendo product is fairly inelastic, meaning that people are going to want it regardless.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a ton of them, people are going to want it. If there's none of them, people are going to want it. They're not going to want it more because there's not a ton of it. They're just going to be pissed at Nintendo because there's not enough of it.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like they've done pretty good over the past few years of whenever they release something that becomes a hot item, they will do another run of it at some point, and then it's just flooded everywhere. So I don't know. Again,
is that right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's like a tactic of theirs, but they have like like with Amiibos, with the NES Classic, it came out initially and it was just like these are gone everywhere. eBay $200, and then they're like, okay, we hear you. We will release more. We didn't.
Well, then that's fine. I wasn't aware that they'd been doing that. I don't obviously clearly don't keep up with, video gaming news and stuff. So, I mean, so I'm assuming that these controllers, that's the same sort of thing. They're
hopefully that's the case. Yeah.
It's likely the chip shortage if they don't.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool and reassuring that that it is actually happening, because like, that's the thing is like, let's just say Nintendo does reprint like Legend of Zelda. I would buy 2, one to play and one to keep sealed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless it's like $100 or something.
Uh-huh.
And so it's like, I don't know why they wouldn't do this. There's no reason in this world why they shouldn't do this, because it's like, it will be so, I mean, like, imprint the production date onto the plastic in the cart. You do that, and then all bets are off, right?
Yeah,
because like you can't put another sticker on it or whatever. Easy.
Yeah.
It's like you're literally printing money. The market's there. The market is clearly
100%.
there.
I feel you.
Anyway.
So Grails, Zerain.
Before we talk about that, I want to come back to the point of the other things that I collect, because
that
actually is part of that.
Yeah,
too.
definitely go for it.
Really, the only other thing that I collect in any meaningful way is Magic the Gathering. And I only collect that in a certain extremely limited way. Obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious. For those of you who don't know, Magic the Gathering cards, some have extreme value, and some have literally less than zero value. It's like not worth the cardboard it's printed on. And a lot of that is a function of a couple different things. It's function of, well, the extreme valuations are a function of rarity. Like there's not a whole lot of it. And a value, based on emotionalization, nostalgia, that sort of thing. So the most extreme pricing is based on that. Also somewhat feeding into the extreme pricing, but even some of the not as extreme pricing, relatively speaking, but still very pricey, is viability of a certain card in a certain format. So, for example, there may be a card that has been printed in like 3 or 4 sets. Sometimes they reprint cards, so it may get into multiple sets. Let's just say it's been reprinted in 3 or 4 sets, but that card is still $50 a copy or $30 a copy, which sounds really expensive for one little card. Well, it's because there's a deck in a certain format that's probably dominating the metagame or really doing well in the metagame, meaning the game of deciding what deck you want to use in this format so that you can do well.
Yeah.
That requires, a place at 4 copies of that card. So it's like, well, if you want to play this deck, you need to get 4 copies of this card. And so many people want to play in the meta because they want to be competitive in that format, as a popular format.
Yeah.
At that level, you got to buy the cards. So that forces valuations up. So values of cards can be, like I said, as little as you can buy cards for a penny. And those cards probably don't mean anything and don't do anything in any meaningful way in any meaningful format, all the way up to, and if people have any kind of knowledge of Magic the Gathering, you've probably heard of Black Lotus, which is a card that was printed in Magic's first 4 sets, sometimes or 3 sets. It's called ABU, Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited, the first 3 printings. I don't think it was printed beyond Unlimited, although I could be wrong about that. And it is a card. So there's very few of them. So this would have been in 1993. All of these printings, I think, would have been 93, 94. And so there's very few of them. And not only that, it's part of what's called the Power 9, which are 9 cards from that Alpha, Beta, Unlimited series cards that are basically the most powerful things that Magic cards have ever done.
Yeah.
And it is considered the most powerful of the Power 9. Basically, it gives you 3 turns in one card. So basically, your turn 1 can be 4 turns in one, potentially.
Oh, wow.
Or it really could be certainly 2 turns in one, maybe even approximating 3 or 4 turns in one. That makes it extremely powerful. Basically, if you start the game with a Black Lotus and ways to use that resource that it gives you in the game, then basically you win the game. I mean, it's just, there's no coming back from it. It's basically like you starting the game several turns before your opponent starts the game.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like that card, if you can find one from Alpha, the original series, very first series, and you can find one that's in like grade 9. So like, you're not going to find a perfect one. You're just not. They don't exist. If they did, it would be stupid. But like now, they're probably $20,000 for an 9 grade Motherless. Alpha Black Lotus. You could probably get it $20,000, maybe even more. I haven't looked in a while. So that's the extreme of pricing. But most cards, if it's cards that are influenced by the meta, if it's depending on the format, if it's like standard, which is a format that rotates very often, but it's the quote unquote primary format, it's not going to be that expensive. Yeah. So like if you have the number 1 meta deck, number 1 card in the number 1 meta deck, a play set of it's probably going to cost you $100, something like that. Maybe cost you $150 if it's an extremely competitive deck. But if you play like some of the older formats, like I do, like Legacy, Modern, if it's the number 1 card in the number 1 meta deck, it's quite possible that a playset of those will cost you $400 or more. And so I collect things for the deck that I play, which is a modern deck called Blue-White Control. Magic has multiple colors. Blue and white are two of the colors. Blue is like, I stop the things that you do. And white is, I can, deal with other things. I can kind of banish things. So think about it like I use my intelligence to stop the things that you do. And then I use my wisdom to banish the other things that you're trying to do. So it's like, it's a brainiac sort of archetype. And so I actually collect the most rare versions, the most rare prints of Japanese foil versions of the cards that are in my deck that I play. So meaning that
it's pretty specific.
Cards have multiple printings like in sets, but they also have special printings that are outside of sets. For example, the Wizards, the company that does Magic, will put on special tournaments. If you win the tournament, you get a printing of a card that's never been printed before. And sometimes those are foil. Sometimes, not always.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I try to get for all the cards in my deck. If they exist, they don't exist for everything. For example, there's a card called Path to Exile, which is an extremely common removal card. So basically it removes, if your opponent has an enemy in play, you pay 1 white mana, it just takes it out of the game. It doesn't even kill it. It does beyond killing it. It literally takes it out of the game.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a really common card in Modern. A copy of it would be like $1 or $2 for regular printing. The copies that I have in my deck are Japanese foil. It's the Rebecca Guay art. So this is the DCI promos. Basically, I've got 4 copies of it. I probably own 4% of the copies in the world.
Wow.
There's probably 100 copies in the world.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah. But the interest in that is so low that I think that each copy was about $75. So that wasn't bad. That's not bad because people don't really care about that like I do. I like it because the card's powerful, pervasive, great. It's a staple in Modern, will never not be a staple. And the art is beautiful. It's not the original art. It's a different art. And this art's only on this printing of the card. And it's an amazing art. And that's the things that hit me. The cards that I play that have the best art that are also, you can't read it because you don't speak Japanese. Or read Japanese.
That's awesome.
So like, I think about a little more than half of my deck is Japanese foil right now. For example, another card that I have is Supreme Verdict. Basically, it's a card that says you can't counter this card. So if I'm playing against a blue deck, they can't counter it and destroy all creatures. So like, basically, it's like, yeah. So supreme, it's a real Supreme Verdict. And the one that I have is the buy a box promo Japanese foil version. It's not as rare as that Path to Exile, but it's pretty rare. Yeah. Because the reason why Japanese cards are so rare, one is because it is the printing that they do that I think has almost, I think it has the least in the print run because they don't, I mean, obviously they print US, but they also print Chinese, they print Korean, they print Spanish cards. All of those, they have a lot of people that buy them. In Japan, a lot of people buy it, but there's not a lot of people that only speak Japanese.
Yeah, right.
And then foil cards are rarer than non-foil cards. So imagine those 2 levels of rarity. Anyway, that's the other thing that I collect, and I'm really weird about it. And I need to set that up for Grails. So
right, that's cool. There's people who do Magic streams on Whatnot, so
I hesitate don't tell me this. I don't need to know that. I really don't need to know that.
Right? Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, my goal is to ultimately have my deck where my opponent just doesn't know what I just tell my opponent what I'm doing, and they have to either trust me or call the judge.
Yeah,
or be able to read Japanese because it's in Japanese and it's non-standard art. So you have to know the non-standard art. Like a lot of people know cards by the art. Like, okay, yeah, I know what that card does.
Yeah,
or I see the title of the card. I know what that card does. But if I can't read the card and I don't know the art, it's like, I have to trust you that this was what this is.
That's pretty funny.
I'm a freaking troll, dude.
I love it. It's like every time I sit down at your mechanical keyboard that the keycaps have no numbers or letters or symbols or anything on. It's like, can't type. Forgot how to type.
Is this Dvorak?
Right. Oh, so Grails.
Yes.
Grails.
You first.
Yeah. So for me, one of them is a game that I rented a lot as a kid, and it is a Blockbuster exclusive, and it would truly complete my Nintendo 64 collection, because I always thought, what if I returned Clay Fighter 63 and a third, and I kept Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut? What would happen? But yeah, so Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut for the Nintendo 64, which it's basically the version of Clay Fighter to play on the N64. It has like the cool theme song, has a couple extra characters and whatever, and it's not really that great of a game or whatever, but I always loved the Clay Fighter games as a kid, and so that one kind of has some kind of a sentimental thing to it, because it's like, I always want it, but the only way I can play this is by renting it. Whatever am I gonna do?
Why? Here's the thing. Like, why is Clay Fighter such a special game in that way? Because it's really not that good, idea. Like any of the Clay Fighter games. Mm-hmm. But like my brother and I, when we rented the Super Nintendo one, like for years we just Clay Fighter, Clay Fighter, like just always singing it to each other and stuff. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
It's like I remember nothing about the game really other than that, and the Helga character, because I think that's funny how she like sings as part of her attack.
Right.
But like, what the heck?
But yeah, Clay Fighter. So this is a rain. I collect Night Trap stuff for whatever reason. I have no idea, but here we are.
You have the best Night Trap collection. It's awesome.
I recently got the PlayStation Vita version.
I didn't even know there was one.
Yeah, it was one of the remastered ones. They released it on Vita. It soared in price immediately after, and then it started going back down. And I got it fairly recently for not much more than what it cost originally. So that was cool.
Yeah. Is it sealed?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So got that, and the PC version I actually got recently too. But I actually don't have the original Sega CD version. I have the Sega CD 32X version, which I think is the version to play if you're going to play it on original hardware.
Isn't that one rarer too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't have the Sega CD version, which it's pricey. And I don't have the 3DO version. There's a 3DO version. Did you know that?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
what's the price on that one look like?
I actually don't think the 3DO one is that bad. I think the last time I looked, it was like 60 or 70, something in that range. I think the Sega CD one's like 150 nowadays.
Oh,
yeah.
Ouch.
So yeah. Another one is a Saturn game. So the last 3 US Saturn games that were released were Burning Rangers, Shining Force 3, and Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Mm-hmm.
And Panzer Dragoon Saga has become like, I don't know if it's the rarest game on the system, but it is up there, like probably top 5. It is super expensive now. I have Burning Rangers and Shining Force 3. I had the opportunity to get Panzer Dragoon Saga when it first came out, and I did not. And I've always regretted that, because for those of you who do not know, the Saturn is my favorite console. So I love the Saturn, and it would be really, really cool to kind of complete that, Triforce of the last games released on the system. But frick, that game is, I don't even know how much it goes for now. There just comes a point when I stop paying attention to it. It's like, okay, this game sells for $1,000. Peace out. We're done here.
Right. Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the last one that I was thinking of is a hardware thing. So I've always been intrigued by the Sega CDX. Have you ever seen this thing?
CDX. Wait a second. Is this I feel like yes. Is this the thing that's like it does it plug into the Sega like the 32X, or am I thinking of something else?
So it looks like a CD player, like kind of like a bulky CD player, portable CD player. but it played Sega CD games, and it had a cartridge slot that you could play Genesis games on it. So it was like
it looks like a home plate almost, like with a flat front. I feel like I know what this is.
Kind of, yeah. I think you're thinking.
I got to see if this is what I'm thinking it is. That's the big thing. Yes, this is what I was thinking of. Yeah.
So
I have seen this.
That was kind of the thing. It could be a portable CD player if you wanted it to be that. You could put batteries in it and use it like that. It had like play buttons and stuff on it. But it also was a Sega CD. It also was a Genesis, so it's kind of like an all-in-one kind of thing. And you can actually use the 32X,
but not a 32X.
Not a 32X. You can use the 32X on it if you have like a spacer that kind of allows you to sit it on it. But so I've always wanted one of those. For the longest time, I watched them on eBay, and they were selling for about $100. And it's like, man, it was kind of getting to that point where it's like, that's a lot of money. I don't really want to spend $100 on this necessarily.
Right.
So I'm just not going to buy it right now. I'm going to watch it for a while. And, if I ever see one for a good price, I'll buy it. And, needless to say, I didn't. And now they're several hundreds of dollars. And,
oh, man.
So
they ain't making no more of those.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah.
So those are all your grails.
Those are all I forgot one. There's this game that's a spin-off of the Mega Man Legends series called Misadventures of Tron-Bonne for the PS1.
What? I've never heard of such.
Yeah. So it's the only PS1 Mega Man game that I don't have. Even though Mega Man's not really in it. It's kind of a
Mega
spin-off.
Man World.
Yeah, Mega Man World. Yeah. And that's like a $500 game. So
oh my God.
Yeah. So if I randomly found that somewhere, for $5, I would probably just live on the floor. I would just pass out. I would just be gone.
you would check out and be like, here's a 20.
Right.
All your changes. Oh, don't worry about it.
Don't worry. Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh man. All right. So grails for me, I don't have very many, cause like I don't, like you, it's I get to that point where it's like, oh, this costs that. I'm done. I'm not even. I don't care anymore.
Just to interject for a second, like, so Zorain, you and I actually talked about this a few weeks ago, and you asked me like what some of my grails were, and I was so detached from what they were because the prices were so stupid that I had just stopped thinking about them. I knew that, like, I would know it if I saw it, of course, but like I had no clue. It was like, what are they? What would just make my brain explode before my eyes if I saw it,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had to actually think about it for a while.
Yeah, and similar for me, I'm not sure how much I can recall now, just like, trying to bring it up, but I do know that the thing that occurred to me earlier when I was like, oh, I wanted to speak about it, I would like to get, and I don't think this is ever going to happen because I think the price would just be too much. I would like to get a sealed black label Silent Hill 2.
Bro.
That's like it graded if I could, or it's like, cased up and stuff. To me, that would be my ultimate holy grail collection item. It wouldn't be the most expensive of the things that I want to get, but it would probably be the most important.
Mm-hmm. That was kind of like
one that
Chrono Trigger for me. I mean, it's not necessarily that. I mean, it's pricey, but it wasn't that expensive. But for me, it was like, we're good here. I'm good with this.
Yeah. Like that's the thing is like if and in fact, it's the one that I really think I might get at some point in my life, depending on what the price does.
Yeah.
Like right now, I certainly don't want to spend the funds that it would cost to get something like that. But in 10 years time, if it hasn't like, tripled or quadrupled, well, it'll probably triple, but if it hasn't like quadrupled, quintupled in price, then I might. That is the diadem for the crown. You know what I mean?
I kind of question, like, as far as prices go. So people that were like, or kids that were into like the GameCube and the PS1 and the original Xbox, that kind of era, specifically GameCube, that's kind of taken off recently because
Yeah.
You know, they're like just out of college age and they're adults now. And so there's that whole thing. So maybe PS2 games will start going back down at some point over the next couple of years when another age group gets old enough to, you know, buy up a bunch of games like the PS3 360 Wii era, that kind of thing.
Well,
but you know,
that actually goes to the other point that I wanted to talk about in a minute, but we could talk about that at that stage. But yeah, I feel you. As far as video games go, though, I'm not sure that there's much else that I would even really want to get other than, you know, I would like to have Final Fantasy NES complete in box.
Yeah.
I have the cart, but I don't have the box and everything. Yeah, I can't really think of much else that really matters to me. I think it would be really cool to have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles NES complete in box, because like as time goes on, my the friction that I have with that game in my mind and in my heart is lessening and lessening. And in fact, I'm actually starting to grow pretty fond of it, to be quite honest. And I just think that there's so many things about that game that's interesting. Not the least of which is that it has the art where they all have the red bandanas you know, masks and stuff. So I think that's a interesting touch. That's even different than the game itself because they have the different colors in the game.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that there's that disparity, but just generally, I think it's a unique experience. I don't think we'll ever have a Turtles game that's like that again. And it is very hard.
Yes, it is.
Maybe that. But yeah, like I said, video games, I don't think much anything else. However, Magic the Gathering is a different story. So there's a card that for the longest time was banned in the format that I play Modern. That became unbanned a few years ago. And I got it in Magic Online as soon as it got unbanned. And it was clear why they unbanned it, because Modern had gotten to a point where the format was so fast that it could take over a match if you could get it out, but you probably could never get it out in time.
Yeah.
And since then, Modern's only gotten faster. And I think I mentioned before, they've printed new cards that have almost broken this Modern as a format, if you ask me. Well, they certainly warped the format. And so this card is even less relevant now, although some decks are playing it. But that card is Jace the Mind Sculptor. And there's I want, again, as with all things, I want the Japanese foil version of Jace the Mind Sculptor, which is not an inexpensive card, like at all. I want to look it up real quick. So there's a store in Japan called Hareruya, and they sell Magic cards, and this is where I buy my Japanese Magic cards from. Nice. So let's see, Jace, the Mind Sculptor. So it's a specific kind of card that's actually a newer kind of card. All right, here we go. Japanese foil, original printing is $2,500 right now. They have one near mint, but that's how much you would pay for it. Yeah, so it's a kind of card called a Planeswalker. So if anybody knows anything about Magic the Gathering, you are a Planeswalker in the game. That was the whole selling point toward the beginning. Once they started having some cohesion around the lore, is that you're this like, you know, interdimensional, you know, intertime, even magician that, you know, can summon all these creatures, can do all this magic, and you fight other such magicians of stature. And in the game early on, it was just the players. The players are the only planeswalkers.
Yeah.
But at some point, they started writing lore. Well, there's a book that they came out with called The Brothers War, and I got it as soon as it came out, and I never read it all, which I should. They started trying to actually canonize to some degree the lore around Magic the Gathering. Well, they started talking about other like named planeswalkers in the books and stuff like that. And then so they started writing on the website, and they do this now with new sets. They actually write the story of what's going on in these sets. And, people are like, got to know these characters and like grew some affinity for these characters. And then they decided, why couldn't you just like team up with some of these and like call them into the battle that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a planeswalker card is. So basically you're summoning another planeswalker to do some things for you. And so they have these things called loyalty counters. So as long as they have loyalty counters, they're loyal to you and they'll do what you ask them to. But if all the loyalty counters get removed, then they just leave. So they go in the graveyard.
Gotcha.
So like, lore wise, it's really flavorful. It's kind of cool like that. And so they have multiple abilities. And each one comes in with a different number of loyalty counters, and they cost different amount of mana to cast. So some of them are easy to cast, some are hard to cast. Jace the Mind Sculptor is closer to a hard to cast. He's kind of like a middle ground though. And so he comes with a certain number of loyalty counters. They have a certain number of abilities. Some have like 2 abilities, some have 3, some have 4. He's one that has 4. I think it's just 4. Yeah, it's just 4. But his abilities are ridiculous. Like one of his abilities is there's a card called Brainstorm that's not legal in Modern, but one of his abilities is to do with the same thing that the Brainstorm card does, which is basically draw 3 cards. So like you have your hand, draw 3 cards, and then put 3 cards back on top of your deck. That sounds like innocuous if you've never really played Magic, but the reality is that means that the top 3 cards of your deck are basically in your hand at all times.
Oh.
Because like you just draw those 3 and then put 3 of the worst cards back on there.
Yeah.
And then you draw and then you just keep doing that.
Bruh.
And then, so yeah, right.
Wow.
And that one doesn't, I think that one's a 0 loyalty ability. So it doesn't change his loyalty count. So you could do that every turn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so basically your card has 3 more, your hand has 3 more cards in it. Not only that, one of the other one is called Fate Seal. Like it's not what it's called, but there's a mechanic in the game generally called Fate Seal. What he does is the same thing as the Fate Seal mechanic. You can look at the top card of any player's library, and you can decide to. I think it's either you put it on the top or the bottom of their deck. So basically, what you could do is you could look at your opponent's deck, the top card, and be like, "That's going to mess me up. I don't want you to have that." Every turn.
Yeah.
So it's a really powerful card. And I'm talking too much about this, but I'm just excited about Magic as always. There's a deck in Legacy called, it used to be, people still play it, but one of the big pieces got banned. But before it got banned, called Miracles, where there was 3 cards that like, if you had them out, basically your opponent could never do anything. Where it was Jace the Mind Sculptor, Counterbalance, and Sensei's Divining Top. So basically between Sensei's Divining Top and Jace the Mind Sculptor, you always had control over what was on the top of your opponent's deck. And then with Counterbalance says if your opponent casts a card or casts a spell, look at the top card of your library. If their mana costs are the same, counter that spell. So like it's like an infinite counter basically.
Yeah.
So you make sure with Sensei's Divining Top that they give crap, or that you control what's the top of their deck. You control the top of your deck with Jace the Mind Sculptor, and then if they draw something, you just make sure that you can counter it with Counterbalance. So they're basically locked out of the game.
Yeah.
It just takes a long time to do it because you're having to do a lot of things every turn. People would run out of time every round, so they banned Sensei's Divining Top and basically killed that deck. But anyway, I'm a real nerd with all that kind of stuff. If you can't tell,
we all have our thing, brother. Everyone's a nerd about something.
Yeah, I need somebody to pull me back at some point. I feel like I'm going over the edge.
Oh, well.
So, really, that's it. I mean, there's some other Magic cards that I would really like, but that's one of those ones where it's like it's interesting to talk about. The other ones are like really special lands with really special arts that are like, it's a land with special art. It's basically like, I want the art. I want to be able to play in my deck with that art.
Yeah,
but it's like that's not as interesting of a story as you can lock your opponent out of the game,
right? Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And let me tell you, it is really annoying to play against Miracles when somebody's got a lock on you. Like people usually just like concede because it's like, we're not going anywhere.
Man, a whole world I know nothing about. That's crazy. I thought it was cool playing the card game in Final Fantasy VIII, but
that is a cool game.
It really
I
is.
Would like to play
I was
that,
shocked
like, physically.
I was shocked how cool it was.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man.
Like when they were first talking about the game in there, I was like, I don't freaking want to play. I just want to play the game. And then, I finally played it. I was like, this is actually pretty cool.
Right. Yeah.
An hour goes by. And
Jace is having Jace the Mind Sculptor out with like some other control mechanism is like having a 9999 card.
Okay. Gotcha.
Basically, just like I win,
Yeah.
I win, I win.
That's cool. Well, Zarain, is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Oh, there is, but I'm afraid we'll go too long if I do.
We can make a part 2 to this if we need to.
I think we should have not necessarily. It doesn't have to be next week or anything, but we should have a meta conversation about collecting, because we talked some about the meta, but we talked mainly about specifically collecting.
That would be good. Yeah, because they actually have some notes about some other stuff that I think would be good for that. So
that seems good.
So yeah. Well, CyberSpace, it has been excellent. It has been fantastic. Thank you for joining us, Zarain. Where can the people of CyberSpace find you out there in the World Wide Web?
You CyberSpacelings can find me at Zerain.net, XERAEN.net. And like I said earlier, if you want to message me about horror games or whatever, X at Zerain.net will direct email at me if you use email. We still use email 100 years in the future. Believe it or not. That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah. Let me know if anybody emails you something. We could play it on a stream or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, cool. Dude. Heck yeah.
Sign me up.
Yes. If you have a game, let us know.
Yes.
We will play it.
1,000%.
Even if you think it's the worst game in the world, we'll play it, because it's interesting to have, contact with the person working on a game, and just kind of, it's a interesting sort of relationship at that point. I think that's super cool. So
definitely
do it.
Sure.
Do it.
Just do it.
Do it.
And likewise, if you go to michaelk.net/links, you will find a bunch of links to all the things that I do, and also Zarain is very heavily involved in as well. So there's that. So anyway, CyberSpace, it's been excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching. If you're watching in video format or wherever you may be listening to our beautiful voices, thank you so much for being here. We greatly appreciate it. And we will catch you next time.
Peace.